for us to be here. We're going to talk about a very delicate issue. We're going to talk about governance and integrity. We had a really good warm-up just before, and we're very excited to discuss this. My name is Alexandra Gomez. I'm a lawyer at FIFPro. FIFPro is the International Football Players Organization, Professional Football Players Organization. We represent around 65,000 professional football players around the world, both male and female, obviously, part of good governance. And we have our members in different countries around the world, in 70 countries. Our members are the player associations or the unions in each country. And what we're going to do today, I'm going to have like a double role of moderating and also participating in the discussion. And each one of the participants here is going to introduce themselves the best way that they would like to introduce themselves. And at the same time, I'm going to ask you guys to also answer the first question, that is, what is your major concern regarding governance and integrity right now? So, yeah, let's get started. Tariq, would you like to start?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tariq Shamel. I'm head of integrity at the FA, the English FA. So for us, integrity actually covers quite a broad church. So it's not just match manipulation or anti-doping. So within integrity, we have a number of teams. We deal with on-field player behavior, technical behavior. We have an integrity investigations team which deal with match manipulation, betting, discrimination, every other sort of off-field potential misconduct. We have the anti-doping team, safeguarding team, and then also an education team. So that's all within integrity. So as I say, it's quite a broad church. What keeps me awake at night is probably complacency. Are we doing enough? And listening to the keynote, I think the question we always have is, are we being proactive enough? Yes, we're reactive because we're quite well resourced. We're dealing with a lot of cases on a daily basis, but are we doing enough to actually challenge what are the core issues behind some of those issues that we're dealing with on a daily basis?
Thank you. Katie?
Good morning, everyone. As the screen says, I'm Katie Simmons. I'm the Global Chief Operating Officer at CDRu3l. I'm a sports lawyer like yourself by background and probably like you as well. And I'm also a champion of female leadership in sport. I manage a global mentorship program and lead that charge, connecting 150 women each year, growing it to 300. I see some good potential and current mentors in the room, so shout out to you, and I'll be saying a bit about that later. In terms of what the major concerns are, obviously we had Emmanuel speak at the start and deliver his keynote, but they really are why we set up CDRu3l 7 years ago, to tackle 4 key areas which we just did not feel that there was an overarching global body. And those areas are good governance in sport, so how the sport operates. We're talking term limits, we're talking gender diversity and inclusion in the decision-making organs, and much more. Obviously, I'll just give a snapshot. We're talking financial integrity and transparency, which is club licensing systems. Do you publish your regulations? Do you publish your accounts? It can be as simple as that, all the way to club ownership rules and oversight and financial transactions, to sports betting integrity, and with obviously the proliferation and the opening of the sports betting market in Brazil, most recently, the repeal of PASPA in the US, there is more often being given more attention to the dollars and the money rather than to the integrity. And we've seen lots of cases where sports governing bodies have been facing those challenges as well. And finally, the sports betting integrity. And to pick up on what you said about what keeps you awake at night, I love the simple word complacency, but I would say it's, for me, working in this industry for the last 10 years, it's the hypocrisy that I hear day in and day out by some of the sports leaders, where when we talk about what good governance is, it's not limiting it to racism, which some leaders have done. It's also when they take out term limits, which means that power continues to perpetuate, removing age limits. And we just have to see when there is a shot of an exco, and we're lucky to see one woman, we may have 2. So that's just that in a nutshell, and I'd love to hand over to you.
Thanks, Katie. My name is David Griffiths, and I am Account Director for Sport and Entertainment within Miller Insurance. So we have I'm not a lawyer, like most of the panel. We have a perspective on risk across the industry. Miller are a 100-year-old business based in London and with 1,000 people, predominantly in the UK and Europe, but in other parts of the world. And we work, we're specialists within the sports and entertainment industry, so we spend our time advising associations, federations, professional clubs, and individuals around the risks around sport. And obviously, reputation is coming up as one of those risks on a regular basis now. So I mean, from my point of view, working with the associations and the clubs, I think my concern is obviously from a broader professional risk perspective is really around the club's ability with their different ownership structures and experience from business, with the different levels of staffing and experience within there to deal with the changes that are coming through the risks out there from an integrity perspective.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Hirschler. Nice to be here today. I'm from an organisation called Signify Group. We are a data science company. I would say I'm a slight outlier on this group, also not a lawyer. But the work that we do is we run a service called Threat Matrix, which focuses on the detection, analysis and actioning of dealing with online abuse. And it falls very neatly under the governance and integrity umbrella, not only because online abuse, more and more we're seeing links with betting, gambling being either the trigger or a result of someone losing a bet or trying to win one. But also the issues that we see are quite common and quite similar to some of the things that have just been discussed in terms of a lack of governance. We've exposed that there is an issue that lots of boards of, we work with big federations, sports federations, we work with Premier League football clubs, we work with lots of different sports as well. There is a common theme across all of those, which is there is a lack of governance dealing with online abuse, how you deal with it, what's possible, what you can do as a sport governing body to deal with it in your sport and in your club, and with your fan base, for example. So we've exposed a lot of those gaps, and that's the part of this conversation that keeps me up at night is exactly that, those missing, those gaps where there needs to be more governance dealing with this, and it's very hard to try and help educate that with the clients that we work with, and we've been trying to do so by showing them the data, by showing them what the problem looks like and what they can do. So I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle, but that'll be part of my contribution today.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is already very promising. I think we will have really interesting conversations on this. From my point of view, I side a little bit here with Katie, of course, with everyone else, but I wonder whether there is true willingness. If there's true willingness to improve governance, to have good governance, if there's true willingness to run the game with integrity. Because, in Spanish we have a saying, we say, querer es poder. If we want it, we can achieve it. And I really believe in that. And I think that we have not done enough because there are some people that are not really wanting some things to change. So we need to keep on pushing on that. So we're going to talk about that. Like, is the industry really doing enough in terms of good governance and integrity? And I wanted to ask Tarek and David if there are enough checks and balances. What do you think? Would you like to start, Tarek?
Checks and balances in my area, integrity, I think there are, in that we have to be transparent. So everyone knows what the English game is like, the microscope it's under, and I don't think we can govern in the field of integrity without that transparency and credibility. So for us, the checks and balances really are the stakeholders. It's really imperative that we take the stakeholders along with us. So in terms of everything we do, we we work very closely with the PFA, PGMOL, EFL, PL, LMA, WSL. So all the key partners are always consulted and are very quick to tell us if they don't think something is working right within integrity. And also, they're a great sounding board for when we're looking at how we develop our processes, our implementations, and the next steps. So I think they're a really important both check and balance to what we do. And I don't think you can work in isolation. So unless you've got the whole game working with you, then I agree. I think there are problems.
Tarek just mentioned that the stakeholders are being consulted. I think that's an interesting topic, and I think it's very connected to something else that we're going to discuss later on the participation of athletes in governance, and what different types of participation the athletes and the other stakeholders should have. Is consultation enough? Should there be like more negotiation, depending maybe on the topic, on the subject, etc. But it's really interesting. David?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tarek's much better placed to give you a proper feeling as to where we are with checks and balances. But I think what we're seeing from a risk perspective is that, as I mentioned in my brief intro, that reputation has gone right up there as a risk that is of concern to clubs in particular. And having previously been looking at perhaps damage to their stadium or to their players as their key assets and catastrophic injuries and that sort of thing as being the major risks that they're concerned about. They're now concerned about reputation and as a result of things that are going on, and that can have a huge impact on their business and the viability of the business going forward. So I think managing that reputational issues is absolutely key for them. And the insurance industry is trying to support it as far as it can in terms of the ability to offer them insurance products in that area. But really, this is about risk management, and that's where the checks and balances come in, and making sure that risk management is in place to protect all the organisations and the whole integrity of the game.
Thank you. Tarek, are the regulations being complied with?
My inbox says no. The reality is the rules and regulations are always going to be challenged. They're always going to be broken, be it on-field behaviour. From the integrity space, anyone who, again, reads any news will know that we are constantly dealing with breaches of our rules, be it on the pitch or off the pitch. I think we have to accept that's always going to be the way, but it's how we deal with those. So are the rules in the right place, but also are the sanctions in the right place? Is the solutions to sort of any underlying problems in the right place? So as an example, the anti-doping system we have a parallel anti-doping program just for social drugs, which actually is not meant to be there to punish players, but actually there to help them. So unlike with WADA, where performance-enhancing fines have to be made public, actually in England, if we find a social drug finding, then actually that remains private, and it's dealt with the FA and the club and the player, and actually the focus is on making sure the player gets the support and help he needs to actually ensure that he actually has a career and isn't left on his own. So I think that's really important, that we not just deal with the breaches, but actually find solutions as well. But the idea that we're ever going to get to a stage where regulations are not breached, I think, is unlikely, and I'll be out of a job.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. However, I have the feeling, of course, I represent professional football players, so I see things probably more from one side only. But to be very honest, when I look at regulations in football in general, FIFA regulations, but sometimes also at FA levels as well, not the English FA, I'm just talking generally, I see that there are regulations and that there are some that are applied like very strictly, by coincidence, to players. But when there are rules that should be applied to clubs, then there's a bit more flexibility many times. And yeah, I find that a little bit frustrating if we look at international level in the FIFA DRC, the Dispute Resolution Chamber. I don't know if you know about that. I don't want to be too technical, but there's a possibility to impose sporting sanctions, both to clubs and to players. And every time there's a breach of contract of the player, sporting sanctions are being applied. And if we read the RSTP, the regulations, they say that this should apply. So, okay. However, these regulations also say that when a club breaches a contract without just cause, sporting sanctions should apply every time. It says shall, it doesn't say may. However, they are not applied. They are only applied if there are 5 breaches without just cause that lead to termination within 2 years to a club. And if it's a player, the first time, the player is already receiving sporting sanctions. So those things are sometimes a bit frustrating. The same with non-payment of salaries. The industry of football is probably one of the worst in the world, incredibly enough. There's a lot of money in the industry and still wages are not being paid. I just want to let you know, because probably not everyone knows this, but almost half of the players, male professional football players around the world earn less than $1,000 per month. And for the professional women players, it's less than $600. And 41% of these players are not receiving their salaries on time. And when we say on time, we're not talking about 1 or 2 days of overdue. We're talking about months. So imagine if you earn $600 or $1,000 per month and you're not paid for 1 month, for 2 months, for 3 months, for 6 months. And this is so common. So in that sense, like, I really feel that we have rules there. People are going to breach them. Institutions are going to breach them. I agree with Tariq. Like, it's very difficult to prevent that from happening. But when it happens, we need to put some action on, right? But well, Katie, let's go back to you.
You said the word action. Here I am.
Yeah, exactly. Could you describe what you do at SIGA and explain us what the standards that have been developed are and how the process to get to them was?
Certainly. So we are a multi-stakeholder platform, a bit like all of us sat around on this stage. We're all coming from different perspectives, and we unite the industry, bringing all around sport integrity. And our mission is to enhance the standards of sport integrity on those 4 key areas that I mentioned before. We do it. What is the action that we're doing? We've got the standards. They're not to be sat in a drawer. That's not going to help. How do we affect the change? We need champions. And I would like to say the FA is a champion of integrity, and it's great to share the stage with you on that, because we need examples of organisations that are doing it well and to come on a good governance journey. No one's perfect from the start. At SIGA, we've evolved our governance. We've been, as I mentioned, here 7 years, and diversity and inclusion was important. We looked at our council, we didn't have 50-50. So we changed the constitution, and now we do. And it shows that you can make measurable steps to improve your governance. And that's what we are here to do, and to provide support to the stakeholders, but to the sports organisations specifically on how they can enhance the standards and really know what excellence looks like. So the standards weren't picked from the air. We had expert task forces that reviewed corporate best standards in a line with also what was out there, and it just so happened that UK Sport was also developing their governance code at the same time. We shared and we nodded because we were talking the same language in many respects. UK Sport has the lever of public funding. What do we have? You mentioned the word reputation, and that's where we developed our independent rating and verification system, SERVS, which gives that oversight. And so I lead an independent audit team. The standards, we conducted a public tender back in 2018. They were reviewed in the first of all by the British Standards Institution, which is the number one standard setter in the world. And they do a lot of ISO. We didn't want to wait for ISO. We took the bull by its horns, and we created the standards specifically for sport. CDRu3l owns the IP, but they are based on international best practice of standard setting. They are the blue chip in terms of good governance. They have been updated and will continue to be updated as best practice evolves. And really, we are really ambitious because these are global problems that require global solutions. And so last year, it was fantastic. The standards were translated to Portuguese. Our CEO is Portuguese, so we were biased there. But eventually, these standards will be translated into every language in the world, and we want every sports organisation to be certified. Every other industry has it. Why can't sport?
Thank you so much, Katie. That is very useful and great job that you have done all through these years. Also for you, Katie, and Jonathan as well, is there enough education and support being provided to players and stakeholders in general in these aspects?
Okay, yeah. In the aspect that we deal with, in terms of online abuse, for example, definitely not. Definitely not. There is, again, I keep using the word gap. There is a huge gap in terms of education, materials, understanding, tactical advice of how you can deal with these things coming from the governing bodies, coming from the clubs, coming from the leagues. They know what the problem looks like. Some of them know what the problem looks like and have done enough studies to show that. We did a piece of work with FIFPro looking at world football and abuse that players received compared with basketball players in the US to try and learn what it looked like and to try and share that with the unions and the federations, but also with the players via the unions. And you know, every time you see a player receive online abuse and then they post it online and they say, look what I'm having to deal with, totally understand why they're doing that, 100%. If I'm receiving abuse in my inbox, I'm going to say, this is not on, I want to tell everyone that I'm receiving this and show that this is wrong. But when they do that, they actually lower the chances of identifying the account that's sending it, which is one of the things that we do. And it makes it harder to apply sanctions and to go after these people. And it's something we've been doing in other sports. With World Rugby, some of you may have seen recently, there were arrests in Australia and New Zealand following the Rugby World Cup in Paris in November. And those came about because we identified the abuse being targeted at players, we shared that with the governing body, and they were brave enough to say, right, we don't actually have a policy or a rule for sharing this with law enforcement yet, but let's just do it. Let's just do it and see what happens. And, you know, I think, Ronald de Boer was talking earlier and talking about his advice to players, saying, you know, sometimes you need to fail, but you need to fail with confidence. And I like that. And that is what I think a lot of governing bodies need to try and do in this space. And they can write the policies and they can write the structures that allow this to happen more. And when you successfully prosecute one person for sending online abuse, the deterrence that you put out there, the message you're sending to all those other people sending abuse to other players is massive. It really, really helps. So passing that advice through to players, giving them tactical knowledge and understanding of what they can do to protect themselves better, but also to help the situation as a whole, is definitely missing in a lot of places. And the FA do it quite well, but lots of other organisations don't.
Jonathan, since we are already in this topic of online abuse and we don't have a lot of time, our panel was shrunk. Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you can describe what you did together with FIFPro and afterwards with FIFA in order to control a bit more this online abuse.
Sure. I mean, the first thing was understanding. It was, and we've done a lot of work with other player unions. We started off working with the PFA in the UK and anti-racism charities like Kick It Out to try and help show what the actual problem looks like. And there is a lack of understanding there. And the lack of understanding comes, and again, I'll give a really good example from the work we did from that particular report. In the US, we did this in 2020, 2021, and we did a study looking at basketball players in the US. This is a sport that is, 70% black athletes, and we did the study during George Floyd, BLM, really, racial tensions were really heightened. And we went into this piece of work, and if you had asked any of our team before we started, or anyone at FIFPro before we started, what will be the #1 trigger of abuse targeting basketball players in the US at that period of time, we would all have said it's going to be racist. And if we had said that, we'd have been wrong. All of us would have been wrong. homophobia was over a third of the problem triggering online abuse, targeting players, and a very similar picture in football across that study. And when we took that to the unions and we said, look, this is the issue, they went and spoke to the players and said, is this what you're seeing? And when they responded, they said, well, we've been trying to tell you this for ages. Nobody's listening to us. We've been telling you homophobia is off the scale as a problem right now in terms of the abuse we're receiving, and no one's listening to us. Once we had the data, once a body like FIFPro had started to push it out there and show what that picture looked like, they were able to deal with it, they were able to run more campaigns, they were able to escalate the problem and show, and go to the platforms and say, you're missing all of this, why are you missing all of this? You're getting better at dealing with racism, but homophobia is nowhere in terms of your checks and safety concerns. So to be able to raise those things was really, really helpful, but to bring the players on side in that process was crucial, and that all comes from good governance, listening, bringing the players into the process, which was missing in that aspect, and it made a big, big difference in terms of moving forward.
Thank you very much. It was a really interesting project to develop together, and I think super useful, right? We were talking about things with which we can help improve. Well, this is a tool that was used, and I think that players really appreciated it a lot, so that was great. We don't have time to go through everything, so let's skip a little bit what we thought we would discuss and go towards the end, but trying to involve like all the other thoughts that you wanted to share with the audience. So maybe in 2 minutes each, if you can make a conclusion a little bit on the most important issues for you, and maybe what is your next step to contribute to good governance and sports integrity. So yeah, if you can all do that in 1-2 minutes, amazing, thanks.
I'll start. So next steps, actually it's sticking with education. So season's ended in 3-4 weeks time. We'll be going out to all the clubs. So on an annual basis, we go and speak to every club's players from Premier League, EFL, National League, Women's Super League, Women's Championship. And it's really important, as I said, stakeholder engagement. But I think what I really enjoy is actually standing up in front of 30 footballers, and you go through, you have 30-40 minutes. Clubs don't give you much longer than that. But you talk about discrimination, social abuse, social online abuse, match manipulation, everything under the sun, all the key issues. But you really get from them what they actually, the current temperature from them. So what are their concerns? So I always find that's probably gives us the most information and the most intelligence to go back and actually work out whether things are in the right place, but also it gives them an opportunity as well we're there to help them, and that's our key. When I first started many years ago at the FA, the only time a player would hear from the FA was when he was in trouble. Now he or she will hear from us on a regular basis, basically to get their feedback. We're explaining what the rules are, but more importantly, we're getting to understand their concerns, what their views are, and I think that's really fundamental going forward, that collaboration.
I'll also pick up on the theme of education, because it was going to be one of the points we discussed, and that's the services we're providing to the sports organisations. Some of them are our members, others are not, and it's training, education, capacity building on what the standards effectively mean. What do we mean by a policy on this? How do we implement it? Then we talked about an independent gap analysis assessment audit that we will go in with our audit team, and we'll do a test of going through a dummy run of the audit, and it will be confidential to the sports organisation, and they can really use that as a tool to narrow the gaps, to minimise risks, and then they can be ready to be certified. So it's taking them on that journey. It's not about going in and saying you didn't achieve the certification and walking away, like to your point. It's about going in and giving them the tools and the education so that they can become bronze, silver and gold, good, better and best, an Olympic spirit. And the one action we're doing
that I'm very proud of. We've done the first SERV certification for the European Federation. We're in the process of doing an international federation, but obviously we're here at SoccerX today, and we will be doing the first football club. It's the first football club in Brazil. It will be the Sao Paulo FC. They're our members from last year, and we encourage any clubs here who want to be the first in their country to come approach me, and I'd be delighted to help you on your governance journey so that you can get the gold.
Brilliant. Thanks, Katie. I mean, I'm going to follow on with education as well, because I think that is the key here. We already work with the players to advise them and support them on their careers in terms of putting in place suitable protections, financial protections, and they get a lot of good advice elsewhere on how to deal with the other issues that we've been talking about here. We've launched into a partnership with the League Administrators Association, which is a new organisation in the UK. And what we're looking to do there is to help educate the club secretaries and other administrators within the clubs, to give them the support for around risk for their own organisation, but also with their engagement with the players, and linking in with a lot of the good stuff that's being done by others on the panel here. So, that has to be the key to taking this forward, is educating everybody on where they need to be.
And from my experience, it's ownership is the issue. We've brought this new issue into governance, into the integrity, under the integrity umbrella in terms of online abuse. And the last 3-4 years we've spent going around speaking to sports organisations and different bodies. The hardest thing that we found is finding the right person to speak to, because no one owns it. No one owns the problem, certainly not from senior leadership or board level. There is nobody that has the responsibility for dealing with this problem. We've had to help the governing bodies to find that person and to create the process that allows someone at board level to deal with this issue. And when you have that, then you have a budget to deal with the problem, then you can start to communicate about what you're doing and the proactive measures that can be done. And a colleague of mine who comes from the sports integrity world said that, this is exactly where the issue of integrity was 5-8 years ago. And the journey that we're going on in terms of dealing with online abuse specifically feels about 5 years behind. It's building a lot faster, it's getting better a lot faster in terms of good organisations taking ownership and doing things. I mean, I feel really bad saying this with the FA here, because they're actually very, very good on this particular issue. But it's because you had an incident, a major incident, which you needed to look at and deal with. And it feels like other bodies are waiting for that to happen. La Liga are dealing with, and the Spanish Federation dealing with some major incidents at the moment. So it feels like those shake-up moments need to happen before everyone kicks into gear. We're trying to say, be proactive, understand what the picture looks like, put measures in place, do it from the top down, and bring players in as well to that process, so that they can understand that you're doing something to protect them. But it does need ownership, and that's my focus.
Can I just quickly say that that's where the standards, putting that into this good governance standards to make it part of the requirements, and that's how, as that piece of work evolves, that the standards can really help to lift that up.
Couldn't agree more.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add that bringing as I don't know, magic ingredients to have better governance and integrity, we need diversity in general, and very especially gender diversity. We are half of the population around the world, and we are not represented in the governing bodies, in the decision-making bodies, but all types of diversity as well. This will really improve the situation a lot. And as I said before, and we couldn't dig into this topic, but I find it really, really interesting, the participation of athletes, of players, in the case of football, within the governing bodies. This participation should be done through the unions, because then there's no subordination and there's no fear from these athletes. There's independence, and then the rights of these athletes can be properly represented in these organizations. So with that, we wrap up. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.